Amy, it's so great to connect today. So, when I first started my PhD program in 2013, I was in one of my very first classes in my first semester. I'm sitting in Art Brief's class, and our assignment was to write a review on a topic that hadn't had a review written about it recently. I knew about this psychological safety concept. I learned about it. I liked it. I was interested in it. And I thought there hasn't been a review on this. It's been about 15 years since the concept since you'd been working on it. And I know others had kind of built on it or developed it a little bit before that too. But I thought this is going to be such a great project. And then a colleague of mine, Alex Romney, who had worked with you, I think he got in touch with you and we found out that you were working on a review of psychological safety. So I didn't get to do it. But that was when I was first aware of the concept, and it's just had such a big impact in our field and in so many organizations since then. So, with all that said, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I have to chat with you today.
Well, I wish you'd reached out to me because then we could have written it together. I actually a young woman from China from a PhD program in Europe reached out, and so I wrote it with her. But we could have all three been working on it together.
It would have been so great to connect back then, and had I been more assertive or confident, maybe I would have done that. Uh, Amy, like I said, you've made such a big impact in the field, and as you think back on the lessons you've learned from your research, what would you most want to pass on to others?
Well, I guess I'll try to answer that question from the perspective of life and any professional life or experience rather than just being a researcher. Is that
Yeah,
what
that's
you're?
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
however you want
So
to take it.
because my work, I stumbled into psychological safety quite by accident. I did not set out to study psychological safety. I hadn't even read Bill Kahn's paper or earlier than that, Warren Bennis and Ed Schein's book from the 60s that both of which included this important concept. But I was studying medication errors as a second year graduate student, and I was interested in learning and teams, and so I was looking at teamwork and whether that would be a predictor of low error rates in hospitals. And um, lo and behold, when I got all the data together, my team survey data and the independently collected error rate data, there was a correlation, but it was in the wrong direction, right? It was the data were suggesting that better teamwork, according to the team diagnostic survey, had higher error rates, not lower, right? So that threw me for a loop. It actually, by the way, was quite, I was some mixture between sort of scared and sad, where I was entertaining the idea of dropping out of graduate school and all the rest. Like, there's that failure moment, right?
Yeah.
That is never comfortable. And so what are you supposed to do rather than just give up and cry? You're supposed to think. So I did. And in that thinking, puzzling, it occurred to me suddenly that maybe the better teams don't make more mistakes. Maybe they report more mistakes. In other words, maybe they are the ones that are willing to tell the truth about what's really going on. And maybe the less good teams, again, according to this survey, are more likely to hide and push errors under the rug, right? That was at least a possibility. And to make a long story short, I was able to do some kind of follow-on analyses and follow up qualitative investigations with an independent researcher who didn't know any of this, and show that indeed there was solid evidence of real differences in what I then called interpersonal climate. That in some climates, in some teams, people really did feel compelled and able to speak up honestly about mistakes. And in others, it was sort of the last thing you would do. You thought you'd be put on trial. And so this kind of unexpected, unplanned, undesired result led to this new insight that maybe there are differences in interpersonal climate. I later, with the help of a reviewer, called that team psychological safety. And that sort of accidental discovery led to then my measuring it on purpose the next time and really hypothesizing this construct and doing all the rest that was what became some articles and other people's building on that as well. A key insight to me that I want to take away from the psychological safety research is this. We humans believe we see reality, right? So if you're sort of having higher error rates over here and lower over there, we rarely stop to think, well, I wonder if that's true. Like, I wonder if that's the full story. I wonder if that's systematically biased in some way I don't understand. And so we kind of take it as if it's a fact rather than as it's data that we need to understand better. And so to me, the key insight about psychological safety is this. Most people, most of the time, are going to hold back threatening content, mistakes, dissenting views, I need help, right? I'm in over my head, right? These are interpersonally risky. So most of the time it's easier and more natural to hold back. And it's harder and more rare to kind of just, I'm going to say it anyway. And it's in special environments, high psychological safety environments, people do it, right? So here's the insight, which is that you don't know what you're not hearing. Like, you know what you're hearing because you're hearing it, but you don't know what you're not hearing. And so there's a Sherlock Holmes mystery that is solved by Sherlock Holmes recognizing that there was a dog that didn't bark when it should have. But it's most people who are not, mere mortals, don't notice the dog that didn't bark. And the insight from psychological safety research is we must learn to notice the dog that doesn't bark. We must learn to realize that we're probably missing something unless we go on a treasure hunt from it along the lines of, Nate, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. We won't hear it.
Yeah.
Or, who has a dissenting view? Like, what are we missing? We won't hear it. So unless we ask for it, right? Unless we really go out of our way to ask for it. So psychological safety taught me the asymmetry of the silence voice calculus and how we must override that natural asymmetry to get the treasures.
So what an interesting story. You find this seeming paradox, and it's because of that paradox and some thinking afterwards that leads to this incredible insight. So one thing I'm wondering is, what do people get wrong about psychological safety? And one of the reasons I thought of this is because I saw a video on social media of Elon Musk kind of mocking the culture at Twitter about psychological safety. And as I was watching it, I was thinking, I think he's actually getting this wrong. I think he's mocking something else that
Exactly.
he's actually, I think he's actually endorsing psychological safety in a way that
Exactly.
he's mocking it.
Exactly. Drives me crazy. So you said it. I hardly need to add to it. But so what people get wrong, I think an easy way to say it is that they decide that psychological safety means being comfortable. When ironically, it's actually about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, because it's a learning. Psychological safety describes a learning environment, an environment where we take risks because of what's at stake. We point out medical errors because we don't want patients to get hurt. We ask for help because we care about the customer. But none of those things are ever comfortable, right? So psychological safety is like permission for candor. It's a willingness to endure discomfort because of what's at stake, because of the larger mission or purpose that we're engaged in. So when people equate psychological safety with either being nice or being comfortable or not working hard, I do get frustrated.
Yeah, because it's actually, yeah, it's not only is it wrong, it's opposite. It's the opposite. It's the
Right.
opposite.
It's the opposite. I'd say almost the opposite, because I think sometimes Musk's own translation of what candor and um hard work mean can border on the self-righteous and not as respectful of others. I mean, there's in all of this is an awareness that we need to be brave, we need to stretch, we need to be uncomfortable, but we also need to be very mindful of others sort of needs and interests and humanity,
Yeah.
that they have, that they are every bit as important a human being as we are. And that too has to be an ingredient, in the optimal work environment.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe last question then is, how do you encourage people to facilitate psychological safety in their own lives, whether it's, professionally or personally?
To me, I think the most important thing to do is merely to pause and call attention to the nature of the challenge that lies ahead, right? The nature of reality, if you will. Because if you think about the world in which we work and live, it's uncertain, it's interdependent, it's bringing us novel experiences and events every single day. And if we really call attention to that reality, then we realize we utterly need each other. We depend on each other. We depend on our honesty and candor and quick, quick willingness to say what we notice so that we can prevent as many preventable problems and failures as possible.
Well, thank you, Amy. This is so fun for me. And I just love thinking about, we don't know what we don't know. We don't hear what we don't hear. And I just appreciate you spending well, first, I appreciate you doing this research and thinking about that paradox rather than giving into some of your earlier desires about want to do what we all want to do when we're faced with challenges is just, quit. So thank you. Love the lesson, love your research, and just really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Thank you.